Hey friends, welcome to the Happy Homestead. I'm Amanda, and today's video is going to be shot over multiple days, but it is part of a collaboration which I am so excited and so thankful to be a part of. We are entering freeze-dried February. So I want to thank Angela at the Inquisitive Farmwife for having this collaboration, for hosting it, and for inviting myself to be a part of it. I'm so excited to be here, and guys, you are not going to want to miss the videos in this collaboration. You're going to want to follow the hashtag freeze-dried February so that you can see all of the videos as part of this collaboration this month. Everyone is going to be showing you how to freeze dry something unique and different and how you can benefit from that on your homestead. The most exciting part of this is that on March 6th at 6 p.m. Central on the Inquisitive Farmwife's YouTube channel, there will be a giveaway, and there is going to be one grand prize giveaway for a Harvest Right freeze dryer. I mean, like, that just gave me goosebumps. Like, that is so exciting. One of you could win a Harvest Right freeze dryer. All you have to do is have a genuine comment on all of the collaborators' videos. And then Angela will be going through and picking the winner. There will also be plenty of runner-up prizes that will be given out from Brian, retired at 40. He's helping and donating some prizes for that also. And what's important, so you know exactly which videos are part of this month-long collaboration, there is a thumbnail. I'll show it now. And this is the thumbnail that you're going to want to make sure that any freeze-dried videos you're looking for, it has this thumbnail with the hashtag freeze-dried February, but make sure that you're looking for the thumbnail for 2024 because this is the second year that the collaboration is in, and you want to make sure that you're entering your comments and entering the contest for this year's video. Without further ado, let's get into freeze drying something today. I have a lot of packages of cheddar cheese. This is Rumiano mild cheddar. I don't know if it might be a raw cheddar. I bought these in 5-pound blocks from Azure Standard, and I sliced them and vacuum sealed them and froze them. This is from April of 23, so it is almost a year old. I have a lot more cheddar than I think I anticipated I'd actually need. I don't need this much. So, plus we make our own cheese now, and I've got some better uses for this. So what we're gonna do is throw all these cheese blocks, as many as I can get, onto my Harvest Right freeze dryer trays, but we're gonna shred them first. I'm gonna shred them in my food processor. I'm going to pre-freeze the shredded cheese, and then we'll put it in the Harvest Right freeze dryer, freeze dry it, powder it, and we're going to then rehydrate some and make mac and cheese. This is all for the purpose of making macaroni and cheese add on instant, right, without having to buy the box stuff. So first things first, we need to shred our cheese. So I'm putting it really as, I say single layer, but it's almost impossible to probably do cheese as a single layer. But I don't want it to be too tall. Now, when you're freeze drying, you never want it to be taller than the height of the pan. So I'm just trying to even it out as much as possible. But by pre-freezing it, I'm really just helping the process along, ensuring that everything is totally frozen before the vacuum pumps in with sucking out all of the moisture. If freeze drying is totally new to you, but a freeze dryer is maybe on your wish list or something that you're considering and just need to learn a little bit more about, this collaboration is going to be perfect because you're going to get to see how everyone uses their freeze dryer. Some people pre-freeze, some people may not, but you're also going to get but you're also just going to get to see the many, many uses on how you can make your freeze dryer work for you and preserve your food for long term. This is my very first time freeze drying cheese. I've never done this before, but my daughter loves mac and cheese. I guess most kids probably do. And I refuse to buy the boxes. I refuse to buy any processed items. So this was just something that kind of came to me because I had been using a powdered cheese that I have purchased from Amazon. It's Anthony's organic powdered cheese. I have been using that lately to make her mac and cheese from scratch. And as I was doing it last time, I thought, gosh, I can totally do this. Let's try it. And so I'm using a cheddar cheese. Did I mention that? I think I may have. But you could use this whole process really with any type of cheese. But we're trying it with cheddar because, again, my goal is mac and cheese. So I have 4 trays of my shredded cheddar ready to go. I'm going to put these into our freezer. We've got a chest freezer and a stand-up upright deep freezer. I'm gonna finagle all of these in there. Now you may be wondering why there's only 4. I do have the Harvest Right Pro, so I can get 5 trays in a batch at a time, but I already have 1 tray in the freezer frozen with cinnamon apple slices, and because the last batch I did, I had 6 trays worth and I could only get 5 in at a time. So the remaining 4 for the next batch will be our cheese. I like to pre-freeze as much as possible when my time allows, when there's space in my freezer that allows. The reason I do that is because I can be guaranteed that everything is totally frozen right before it goes into the freeze dryer. And it actually cuts down the cycle time by maybe a couple of hours, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, possibly. It still has to go and freeze and get down to 0 degrees or -10, whatever your freeze dryer is set for. But it helps speed the freezing process along a bit. Plus, my chest and stand-up freezer, they're already running. They're already drawing power. They're already drawing electricity. Whether I put these in or not doesn't necessarily matter. Whereas the freeze dryer is drawing much more power, obviously, when it's running. Not that much power, don't worry, but I do try to be efficient in thinking in that way. So once these are totally frozen, I'm hoping in about 12 hours, we will go ahead and put these in the freeze dryer tonight. I apologize for the rough lighting. I don't know, the lighting looked a little rough on my end. Hopefully it's coming through okay. We are here at the freeze dryer in our front pantry room. This is where I keep it. And our cheese has been on the trays and in the freezer for 11 hours. I did that at 8 a.m. this morning. It's now 7 p.m. So the first thing we're gonna do is just check everything, make sure everything is situated and in place. And the only reason I'm checking this is because earlier today I actually cleaned out the freeze dryer. I took the rubber ring off, kind of cleaned out the trays, or the insert, I should say, cleaned out the insert and then the door, and just made sure everything was okay. So we're just gonna double check and make sure everything is still seated right. The rubber ring looks good. Don't mind the magenta light coming from the back room. It's my grow lights. I've started a couple of perennials and the grow lights are on. I am going to turn the machine on. Now, when you're kicking off your freeze dryer to run a batch, run a cycle, it needs to run for about 15 minutes because right now it's in ambient room temperature, which is anywhere between 67 and 68 degrees, and it needs to get cooled down before you put the trays in. Now, theoretically, you can put your trays in while it does the cooling down process. It doesn't necessarily matter. The point is it needs to run for about 15 minutes before you can actually start the cycle. I fully anticipate that most people are somewhat familiar with the freeze dryer, but just in case, I wanted to kind of let you know how the process works. We've had our freeze dryer for 10 months. March of this year will be our 1-year anniversary. And it did take a few months for me to really get past that learning curve and to also just feel confident. And I think that's perfectly normal. But let me impart some things that maybe might help you get past that learning curve a little bit faster than I did. And that was number 1. The cycles are freeze, vacuum, dry. So there's 3 main cycles when you are running through a batch in your freeze dryer. No matter what it is, it's freeze, vacuum, dry. The freeze cycle, freeze part of the cycle, will take, like I had mentioned, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. It depends on what it is, right? The density of it. It depends, is it pre-frozen? And all of that really does take into account, and not only the density of it, but how tightly do you have the trays packed, right? That includes the density of the food as well as the density of your trays. Now, the vacuum cycle or vacuum part of the cycle, that's going to be the least amount of time. I have found that, again, depending upon what it is, and this is dependent upon how much moisture, how much water content is actually in the food. Is it 5 minutes? Or is it more like 20-ish, 25 minutes? I haven't seen anything really go to above 20 minutes. And then the dry part. The dry part, it takes the longest. And this can be anywhere from, on top of the 4 to 6 hours, add, your 30 minutes or so for vacuum, just to estimate for easy numbers here. So let's just say we'll just say we're at 6 hours total for those 2 portions. You're going to probably add on an additional anywhere between 18 to 24 hours on top of that original 6 for the dry time. Depending upon what it is, depending upon how thick you have your trays packed, the dry time takes the longest. And I think that's really important to know, because you'll then, when you get to the dry time, you'll start to see almost like a bar graph showing, how far is it, right? So if it's a 3-inch long graph as a bar and it's already 2 inches shaded in, you think, oh my goodness, we're almost done. Not really. It's very deceiving. You just have to trust the process, but it's going to take anywhere between 18 to 24 to sometimes 30 or more hours. I just ran a batch of freeze-dried apple slices, like I had mentioned, and I packed my trays pretty well because I just figured I'd rather run 1 batch that went longer than 2 batches at, say, 24 to 26 hours each and have to do that twice, right? So the longer batch that I ran, the tighter trays, I actually ran it for 36 hours. That was the total process from freeze, vacuum, dry. So you just have to get into the mindset that it's going to take a little bit longer to dry than what the screen may show you. The other thing that I wish somebody would have told me is that on your machine, when you go into, you can hit start, like I just did, or you can hit customize. And in the customize button, you have some different preferences. And extra dry time is one of them. I set my extra dry time at 24 hours all the time, no matter what it is. The reason is because this has happened to me, where it could be 2 o'clock in the morning and maybe I didn't have the dry time set, right? This is when I was just getting to know my machine. And I was like, why would I dry extra? No extra dry time. And so at 2 in the morning, I hear the machine beeping and I'm like, oh no. So now I have to get up and figure out, what am I doing? Am I going to deal with this or not, right? And so now I have the extra dry time on at 24 hours all the time. So even if the machine is technically done drying, it kicks in to that 24-hour extra dry time cycle, which gives me time to deal with the contents on my clock, on my watch. So I am not being subservient to the machine, rather it's working for me and I get to dictate when I take my items out. After the trays are in, it's going to tell you close the drain valve, and that keeps the vacuum intact when that time comes. So now we're going to begin the freezing process. It has been probably 2 weeks since I freeze dried the cheddar cheese. And so it went for about 24, I think 25 hours in the freeze dryer. I took it out, I filled up 1 quart jar and I put an oxygen absorber in there, and then I vacuum sealed the lid on. With the rest of it, I put it in my Mylar bags with an oxygen absorber, and that is stored safely in the pantry. It was then heat sealed, right? So you don't vacuum seal the Mylar bags, but you heat seal them, label them, and they're good to go. But it is now time to test out the experiment. My daughter has asked for macaroni and cheese for lunch. I've got the water on the stove boiling so we can cook our elbow pasta. We've got the butter, we've got the milk. We now are going to try our cheddar cheese. So I could probably just take some of this and put this in with the hot pasta, milk, and butter, and it will melt. But I'm actually going to grind it up in my cleaned out coffee grinder so that I can make it in a powder, just as you would have it in a typical mac and cheese. Oh, I gotta plug that in now.
When you opened it, the cheese threw.
I know, that's because of the vacuum. It was vacuumed in. Doesn't really smell like anything.
Yeah. It sounds good.
No, it's exactly how it's supposed to sound. Now that's cheese powder. So the cheese finally melted. I did add some salt because you need to remember with those macaroni and cheese mixes, there is salt in there. And Redmond real salt is the salt of choice. But I think it looks pretty good. Now we're gonna have the true taste test.
True taste test.
I hope you like it. Is it good? Be real, be serious. Are you sure? So once again, I want to thank Angela, the Inquisitive Farmwife, for including myself, the Happy Homestead, in the freeze-dried February collaboration. Don't forget to check out all the other channels listed below. And remember, you're going to want to comment on every video for every day, because each individual comment is your entry towards that grand prize on March 6th on the Inquisitive Farmwife's YouTube channel. And remember that grand prize, you're not going to want to miss out on that chance, a Harvest Right freeze dryer. Thanks so much for joining me during this experiment. I think freeze-dried cheese is a win. By the way, I would do that same exact process I did for queso if you ever wanted to make a queso with freeze-dried cheese. Stay healthy, stay well. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.